Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Art of Splatoon, a video series covering the Splatoon series as a whole. In the previous video, which I'll have linked below, I did an introduction to the series and covered what exactly Splatoon is and a rough outline of how to play. In this video, I'll be covering everything you need to know about the different cities you can travel between, the main lobby you'll be in for a lot of the game, and what all the abilities do. Splatsville is the first city you'll find yourself in after completing the tutorial. It's known as the City of Chaos. There are a lot of Inklings, Octolings, Jellies, and other sea creatures wandering around this big city. And when you see them, you might notice artwork next to their player names. If you want to know how to make some yourself, all you have to do is head on over here to this red postage box, create some art, hit post, and now when everyone sees your character walking around the city, they'll see your art. And if they see a particular piece of art that they like, they can then go up to the Inkling or Octoling and hit the Fresh button to boost its popularity and make it show up for more people. Next, I'll give you a little tour of the city, where all the shops are, what they're for, side modes, Deep Cut Studio, and the train station, as well as a few Easter eggs and cool things to check out for yourself. First, we'll walk from the area you start to each of the shops. This first shop is called Ammo Knights. It's the weapon shop, owned by Sheldon, the horseshoe crab. He's very passionate about his weapons, so press ZR to speed up his ramblings. You'll need Sheldon's licenses for buying weapons. You can earn these every time you level up and every time you get a weapon to its first freshness star. I'll go over weapon freshness in the next video, so subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to stay updated on everything that comes out on my channel. Next up on the list is Not Couture, the Headgear shop. Gnarly Eddie is the owner of the shop, and his assistant, Nails, is just way too cute. They sell anything from hats to helmets and glasses to bandanas. Gnarly Eddie is very nonchalant, and Nails can be pretty loud, however, very nice. Their selections switch out every day, as does every other gear shop. Next, we've got Mana Wardrobe, a clothing shop owned by this jelly named Jellafleur. He's got everything you need from everyday t-shirts, classic and modern fashion, jackets, and any other clothing you might have. Next up is the shoe shop, Crush Station, owned by Mr. Coco. He might look a little intimidating, but he's probably the kindest of all the shopkeepers in Splatsville. He doesn't just sell shoes though, he's got a selection of boots and even sandals. The final shop on our list is the general store, Hotlantis. The owner, Barry C., is rarely around, but one of the regulars, Harmony, has taken over, sort of a manager for the store while he's gone. Harmony is actually the leader of a band known as Chirpy Chips, and you'll sometimes hear their songs in battle. But anyways, back to Hotlantis. Here you can find anything from little trinkets to stickers or other decorations. Harmony will also give you a catalog each season. A season is a 3-month period that sort of lines up with the seasons in real life. There are 4 seasons on repeat. Drizzle season starts in September, Chill season starts in December, Fresh season starts in March, and Sizzle season starts in June. And all start on the 1st of each month. With the catalog, you can fill it up by participating in battles or working a certain job. Every time you fill up your catalog a level, you can go back to Hotlantis and show Harmony, and she'll give you all the rewards you've earned. The catalog has 100 levels, so make sure you spend time on it each season working through the catalog to fill it out. Now you've seen and know about all the main shops that you'll be visiting on a regular basis. So let's look at some of the other places you can visit. Firstly is the Table Turf Battle Booth, set up kind of near a back alley over here. You can talk to this goldfish named Marigold, aka Staff, to get started. There will be a full Table Turf guide coming on this channel soon, so stay tuned for that. There's another goldfish named Marigold that runs a recon guide over here, where you can visit any of the stages in the game offline without anyone to get in your way. Using this is a great way to learn the layouts of the stages. I'd also like to point out this sea urchin named Merch. He has your every gear need covered. Whether you see gear someone else has that you want to order, or if you want to change, re-roll, or scrub off the abilities of some of your gear, Merch is your guy. More on abilities later though. The next place on our list is Grisco Industries, said job from before, a very sketchy company right on Main Street in Splatsville, just up the main steps. And here you can work a shift of Salmon Run. If you don't know how to play, I'll be going over that in another video soon. Next up is the Shoal. To get here, all you have to do is go up these steps and take a right. The shoal's where you'll play with friends locally or on the same Wi-Fi network as you. It's typically used in tournaments or when you don't have an internet connection. The shoal allows you to play any of the usual modes like Turf War, but also lets you play Salmon Run and Table Turf Battle as well. When you first get to the shoal, you'll be in local wireless mode, which is essentially a way to play with nearby people offline. However, for better stability, you can switch to LAN play by holding down the left joystick, ZL, and ZR buttons. You'll know you've done it when a pop-up appears letting you know it is set up for LAN play. Fun stuff. Another great place to see is Deep Cut Studio. You may have noticed these three by now if you've played the game at all. They run the Anarchy Splatcast to fill you in on all the latest news. The next place is right next to the studio, the train station. Here you can travel between the two biggest cities in the Inkling world, Splatsville and Inkopolis. And in Inkopolis, there are two famous destinations, one being the square and the other being the Plaza. If you choose to travel to the Plaza, you'll find yourself here. You'll notice there are more shops along a strip mall called Booyah Base, a Grizzco location, and a shoal. There's even a mysterious alleyway where a very helpful sea urchin known as Spike lives. Spike can do anything Merch can do, so go at it. The weapon shop here is also owned by Sheldon. However, one of Sheldon's apprentices, Shelly, runs this one. The Headgear shop, Cooler Heads, is run by Annie and Mo. Annie isn't an enemy, and Mo is a clownfish. Annie's pretty shy, but I can really assure you that Mo is not, and he can be kinda rude sometimes. All of the shops sell the same merchandise as the ones in Splatsville. Should just mention that quick. The next shop is Jellyfresh, another clothing shop, this time owned by Jelonzo. Most jellies don't speak Inkling, however, Jelonzo learned it. And then we have Shrimp Kicks, the shoe shop, run by Fred Crumbs. And if you don't want to take the train all the way back to Splatsville, there's an arcade-looking machine that allows you to remotely get in contact with Harmony at Atlantis. Table Turf also has gained traction here, so there's a stall for that here as well. There's also another recon guide here. Another studio exists in the Plaza too, the Squid Sisters studio. They are pop stars and they used to run Inkopolis News, however, they don't anymore. They still sing though. You'll also notice that there is a lobby here called Inkopolis Tower, but it looks just the same inside. Our next destination on the train is Inkopolis Square, another popular hangout place for all the cool squids and octos. There's another strip mall here called the Galleria. There's another Ammo Knights location, still owned by Sheldon, but run by Shelly's twin, Donnie. A headgear shop called Headspace, run by Flo and Craymond. Flo is a sea slug, and she has a very chill and vibey personality, and many Inkling regulars call her their crazy aunt. While Craymond is more of an anxiety-filled little guy. He's an emperor shrimp and loves to blurt things out, although he is pretty kind, compared to Mo. A clothing shop called Ye Old Cloth Shop is run by Gelfonzo, another jelly that learned Inkling. However, he was self-taught using text with Old Inkling, so you might notice his language seems a bit odd or outdated. And another shoe shop called Jellafresh, run by Bisque. And of course, there's another arcade machine that you can get in contact with Harmony through. Of course, there's also another Grizzco location, the original one. There's also another shoal location, another table turf stall, and another recon guide. Another lobby sits here too. This one's called Deca Tower. And again, it looks the same inside. There is also yet another studio here for another pair of stars, Off the Hook. They are a very popular music duo that used to do Inkopolis News after the Squid Sisters quit. Merch will also travel here from Splatsville to make sure you always have your gear needs met. With all that being said, let's head on back to Splatsville and check out the lobby. The lobby is a great place for training, finding battles, getting a beverage, listening to music, and more. Let's go over what all the lobby has to offer. First and foremost is the battle matchmaking. You can queue up for any kind of battle, whether that be Turf War or one of the Anarchy modes. You can also host or join your friends in private battles. Private battles are special because you can play any mode on any stage of the host choice. And you can also go on recon with your friends. It's a fun way to get together and play with or against friends. If you'd rather play in public lobbies with friends, you can do that too. Just press right or left on the left joystick while hovering over one of the battles, or press L or R to change tabs. The fourth tab over shows your friends and what modes they're in and if they're joinable. The third tab over is your invites list. You can join pools from here. A pool is really simple to use. If you type, for instance, Splatoon into the pool code, you will be able to join anyone else with that Splatoon code, regardless of whether or not you are friends. The second tab over shows your last 50 battles and your win rate. You can review past battles anytime. It's a really nice feature. And finally, the fifth tab over allows you to remotely turn on the copy machine or clean up the lobby to reset the ink and everything else you've deployed or shot. The copy machine is this little guy over here. He's essentially a training dummy that shoots back. It just copies everything you do. If you press ZR, it will shoot. If you press R, it will throw a splat bomb. It can be a very handy tool for testing things out. The training dummies are really helpful too. They're all over in this area of the lobby. For the big ones in the back, you can't pop them, but you can see the damage you deal next to them. Next up, I want to point out the X button. When you look here, you will either see the turf map or the menu, and you can toggle between which the X button will open by pressing on the right joystick. The menu is a great way to access the city map and fast travel to several major locations, as well as review your gear, level, table turf cards, ability chunks, and so on. This can be accessed in any of the major areas of the game. There's also a jukebox. You can go up to it and pick almost any song in the game. If you want to play a song, it only costs 100 Squid Cash. You can use this in private battles too, and when you do, everyone in the lobby gets to hear the song you selected. But be careful, it might turn into some kind of song choosing battle. That hasn't happened before. Next up is the Grab and Go stand. You can order enhancing food or beverages from here. The Pescatariat, I have no idea if I said that right, and Marigold and Garden Green foods increase the experience points you gain from each battle, and the Crab Trap and Mega Mountain a la Marigold foods increase the amount of Squid Cash you make after each battle. And each of the drinks increases gear XP that you gain and increases the chance for the selected drink's ability to be chosen. In order to place an order, you'll need a ticket, but don't worry, they're pretty easy to obtain through catalogs, single player, or the shell-out machine, which I'll get us to in just a little bit. If you head up the stairs over here, there's a lounge area where the table turf tables are located. Heading back down the stairs, this is the lobby terminal. It has a lot of really helpful tools within it. You can change your in-game name, change your splash tag, watch and upload replays from your last 50 battles, enter a replay code from another person's upload, change your Splatfest region, view your battle logs, view your Anarchy battle and challenge results, and get stuff from special events, gifts, and other things. Now it's time for the shell-out machine. This is kind of a gumball-like machine, and kind of a gambling machine, both at the same time. You get one draw for 5,000 Squid Cash a day, and after that the price goes up to 30,000 Squid Cash. You can also earn shell-out tokens for certain things which can be used for free draws. This here is a ghost. They're basically little projections of your friends, and they say you can join some of them, and some post their replays. It just basically shows something new that's going on with your friends. The last big thing in the lobby is through these doors and down here. This is the locker room, a great place to go if you want to put some of those stickers and decorations from Hotlantis to use. You'll start off with a small locker, but by the time you hit level 30, you will have a much taller locker that you can fit more stuff in. You can also view others' lockers, and others can view yours. It's a very fun feature. I usually keep my locker full of some of my favorite weapons. And one more thing before we move on from things in the lobby. If you get disconnected, whether it be because the game kicked you out of a match, or your internet connection drops, or you straight up rage quit, you have a chance to be temporarily banned. The timer is typically 10 minutes, but it can be anywhere from up to an hour, that I've seen anyway, or even as little as just 1 minute. It's strange, but the important thing to know here is that if you disconnect, you should check for a ban. All you need to do is tap on any of the public battle options. Before you're even allowed to hit join, a message will pop up letting you know that you are banned for X amount of minutes. This timer will not start until you check, so if you disconnect and are going to be done playing, please make sure to check if you are banned before you leave so that the next time you boot up the game, you aren't hit with a nasty surprise. One other thing to note is that if you are banned, you can still play in private battles, table turf battles, and any of the offline things such as story mode or the shoal. Now, let's talk a little bit about gear and abilities. You know what the clothing, shoes, and headgear shops are, and you know what they sell, But what about the abilities that all of the clothes can give you? Because yes, every one of these purchasable gear options gives you some kind of ability perk. In each of the shops, you can hover over a piece of gear to see what its primary or main ability is. This is the big ability and is more powerful than any of the secondary abilities, which are smaller ones indicated by a question mark and are unlocked at random through battle XP. Before I get into any more details, let's go over what each of the abilities does, and if this goes over your head, don't worry, some of these abilities are sort of complicated. I promise I will cover them again in this series in a way that helps you set up for gear for yourself. Firstly is Ink Saver Main. This ability is super helpful, especially for weapons that use a lot of ink, or for newer players that haven't quite mastered ink management. It simply lowers the ink cost of your main weapon so that you can use it more before having to refill. Ink Saver Sub is very similar to Ink Saver Main, however it lowers the cost of ink for your sub weapon rather than your main weapon. This ability is very useful for sub weapons that use a lot of ink, and you can actually see the effect of this ability on your ink tank, as that red line that I mentioned in the first episode will actually be moved down on your ink tank. Sometimes, if you have enough Ink Saver Sub, you can even throw 2 or more of certain subs without having to refill in between. With subs like Burst Bombs, you can even get out 3 without needing to refill. Next up is Ink Recovery Up. This ability is still useful, albeit a little bit more of a niche one. It increases the speed at which you refill ink. It's typically a pretty good ability to run for weapons that use more ink, and for weapons that like to use their subs frequently. Then we've got Run Speed Up and Swim Speed Up. I'll go over both at once because they're pretty similar and straightforward. They both increase their specified speed. Here's Swim Speed Up. Very useful for weapons that are shorter range and love to rush in, or for heavier weapons that might need to make a quick escape. And here's Run Speed Up. Very useful for weapons that like to fire without submerging as frequently in ink. The increased run speed also helps those weapons close the gap while firing. Special Charge Up decreases the amount of P you need to ink in order to charge your special. I find it most useful on weapons that already like to paint a lot, and on weapons that like to use their specials frequently. Special Saver is a great ability to use for weapons that are going in and getting splatted a lot. It decreases the amount of special charge you lose upon respawning. Normally, you'll lose half of what you've charged, but with this, you can get it all the way down so that you don't lose any of your special. Nothing beats respawning with a fully charged triple splashdown. Special Power Up is a fairly complicated ability, as its effect is dependent on what special you have. For something like Triple Splashdown or Reef Slider, it increases the ink and damage radius. For Crab Tank and Ultra Stamp, it increases the duration. For Inkjet, it increases the radius of the shots and the duration. And for Big Bubbler, it increases the HP of the bubble. Each special does something different, so try them all out. Quick Respawn is probably one of the best abilities in the game. It is really good for weapons that are getting splatted a lot, as any time after your first splat that you don't splat someone before you get splatted, you respawn faster. Super good for a fast-paced game like Splatoon. Quick Super Jump is an ability that lets you super jump a lot faster. You only need a little bit of this ability to make a big difference. Sub Power Up is similar to Special Power Up in the fact that it has different effects on different weapons. This time it's for subs instead of specials. Who would have guessed? Sub Power Up can increase the throw range of splat bombs, angle shooters, and many other subs. It can also increase the speed at which you jump to a Squid beacon, although this depends on the user. So if the user has Sub Power Up and you don't, but they place a beacon, you'll get that speed boost too. Pretty helpful. Ink Resistance is a great ability, especially in small doses. It helps reduce slowdown in enemy ink as well as damage dealt by stepping in it. The more you have, the more effective it is. However, you only need a little bit to make a difference in your gameplay. Sub Defense Up is an ability that reduces damage against opposing sub-weapons. It also can reduce the amount of time you are marked against enemy subs like point sensors or angle shooters. It's another great ability that typically does better in lower amounts. One sub of the ability is enough to lower the damage of burst bombs enough to prevent 2 direct hits from splatting you. Intensify Action is an ability that is very useful for a lot of things. Firstly, with certain weapons, you might notice how when you jump, the reticle gets wider. This means that your shots get more randomized, which can be bad when you're trying to take fights. Using this ability can really help you out because it stops that shot spread from increasing. This works the best if you have a shooter, blaster, or splatling. The more you have, the more effective it is. However, there's a second use for this as well. It also decreases the time it takes to perform a squid surge and allows you to perform more squid rolls in a row without losing momentum. How to perform squid rolls as well as other intermediate techniques and how to play all 4 anarchy modes will be included in the next episode. Anyways, back to abilities, and the rest of them are special, in a sense, because they can only appear as main abilities, the big ones, and they only appear in one category of gear. These first few can only show up on Headgear. Opening Gambit is probably the most aggressive ability in the game because it only works for the first 30 seconds of battle. However, anytime you get a splat or an assist before that time is up, you get 15 seconds added to that timer. It doesn't automatically go away if you get splatted either, as long as you still have time left. The effect is very strong. It gives the equivalent of 3 main abilities of Swim Speed Up, Run Speed Up, and Ink Resistant Up, as well as Intensify Action for as long as the effect is active. This means you'll be running and swimming much faster, enemy ink will barely slow you down at all, and your jump spread will be reduced to almost nothing, not to mention that you'll be able to charge your squid surges in almost no time flat. As good as all this may seem, this ability is very risky. It can be hard to get a splat or assist in the first 30 seconds of a battle at times, and if you lose the first fight, the ability is going away. Once that timer runs out, all of its benefits go away and it just becomes dead weight for the rest of the battle. And it's important to have ability that work throughout the entire battle. Last Ditch Effort is a lot like Opening Gambit, however it is the last 30 seconds of battle when it gets activated. It will also be partially activated in any of the anarchy modes once the other team scores down to 50, and be fully activated once the enemy team scores down to 30. If that doesn't make sense yet, don't worry, I'll be going over the anarchy modes in the next video. But anyway, these effects last until the end of the game. They are kind of like a comeback tool, and very useful at that. Last Ditch Effort gives you just under 2 main abilities worth of Ink Saver main, Ink Saver sub, and Ink Recovery up. The exact amount it gives you is 1 main and 2.6 subs, or 18 AP or ability points. Tenacity is a really interesting ability as it has a very unique perk. When there are more enemies alive than teammates, your special meter will automatically fill, albeit very slowly, but the greater the difference, the faster it charges. So if you're the only one alive on your team and all 4 enemies are alive, you'll get a lot more special charge than if 3 members of your team were up and all 4 of the enemies were as well. But all 4 of the enemies do not need to be alive for its effect to kick in. Just as long as there are more enemies alive than members of your team, it will work for you. Comeback is a very powerful ability, as it gives you a bonus somewhat similar to Opening Gambit. However, it applies for 20 seconds every time after you respawn. The abilities it gives you are 1 main worth of Ink Saver, a main worth of Ink Saver sub, a main of Ink Recovery up, Run Speed up, Swim Speed up, and Special Charge up. While some of the perks aren't the same as Opening Gambit, it's not risky to use and overall is just really good to have, especially if you have a weapon that goes in a lot or you tend to get splatted a lot. This ability is for you. And that's it for Headgear exclusive abilities. Now onto the clothing only main abilities. First up is Ninja Squid. It's a great ability for anyone that likes to be stealthy and sneak up on their enemies. It lets you hide the splashes from your ink after about half a second, as well as quiets your splashing while swimming down a bit. It also quiets the little bubbling noise you make if you sit in the ink. However, it does slow down your swim speed, so using some swim speed up in combination with this ability is a really good idea because moving fast in this game is very important. Thermal Ink is next, and it's a very underused ability. All shots from your main weapon, except for things like blast or indirect shots, will essentially mark that opponent with thermal ink. So when that player is behind a few walls, you'll be able to see a little white silhouette of them and know their location. This lasts for 30 seconds after hitting the enemy. It's good on long-range weapons like splatlings or other long-range weapons that don't always finish the enemy in one shot. This way, you can keep tabs on where your enemies are that you've tagged but not finished off yet. Only other thing to note here is that you can't see enemies that are submerged in ink or if they're too close to you. The ability Haunt has a similar effect as Thermal Ink, as when it is active you can see where the enemy is with that white silhouette. However, instead of hitting the enemy to tag them, you have to get splatted by them. When you respawn, you'll be able to see their silhouette, and if you splat them back, I like to say getting revenge for yourself, they will get the effect of Respawn Punisher. The effect also lasts until the opponent is splatted. Unlike Thermal Ink, there's no limit on how many users the Haunt user can track either, so if all 4 opponents splat you, you can then come back and get all 4 of them. All 4 of them will have that Respawn Punisher effect. Overall, this ability is really good, and there's really no trade-off to it. Now, for the aforementioned Respawn Punisher. It's a very risky ability. As I said when I went over Haunt, splatting someone while using this ability increases the time it takes for them to respawn, and it makes them lose 65% of their special charge, and takes 9.25 seconds for them to respawn. Normally, you lose only half of your special, and it only takes 8.5 seconds to respawn. However, when you wear a shirt with this ability, you will have similar adverse effects if you get splatted. More specifically, you will lose 72.5% of your special charge and take 9.67 seconds to respawn. And they will stack, so if you're wearing Respawn Punisher and the person who splatted you also has it, the time it takes you to respawn will be even longer, a whopping 10.4 seconds, and the amount of special you lose will even be greater, a whopping 87.5% of it. A very risky ability that should realistically only be used on weapons that have very long range, like E-Liter, or weapons that are not going to die a lot. It can really make or break the game sometimes if it takes a few seconds more for your enemies to respawn and get their specials ready again. And Ability Doubler is extra special as it is only found on Splatfest tees, and there's no way to get merch or spike to add it to one of your shirts using ability chunks. It essentially just doubles the effect of all your secondary, little abilities on your Splatfest tee. But it's not too great if you ask me, but at least you can change it to anything else. And now on to shoe-only abilities. Object Shredder is kind of an odd ability. It increases the damage you deal to objects, such as sprinklers, squid beacons, wave breakers, big bubblers, and even Booyah Bomb armor. It also helps your weapons deal more damage to the Rainmaker barrier. There is one sort of caveat with this ability, and that is that it doesn't increase damage to Brella canopies. Since Brellas are a main weapon, they are technically counted as part of the player, and Object Shredder only works against non-player targets. Still, a pretty good ability. Stealth Jump is next, and it's really a great ability. It hides your super jump landing spot from players at a distance. I say that because if an opponent is close enough to the spot, they will still be able to see it. It also doesn't let your teammates see that landing spot, but it's not too important in most cases. Things like chargers and splatlings won't usually be able to camp your landing spot because they're usually too far away to see that spot. One other thing I should mention is that specials like Inkjet that have a recall point are not hidden with this ability. And finally, Drop Roller. It's pretty niche, but it's still good in its own right. Pretty much everyone likes to run Stealth Jump, but there are a few people, especially Inkjet and Zipcaster users, that like to use it because it lets you roll after you land, even after an Inkjet or Zipcaster. And for 3 seconds after said roll, you get the added bonus of 3 mains worth of run speed, swim speed, and ink resistance up. It's great for juking your enemies and keeping yourself alive after a riskier super jump. Well, that's all the abilities. Now, a few important things to know for these abilities. An ability chunk is what you can use to spend changing abilities on gear. They're kind of like pieces of extra abilities that you can save up and spend to customize your gear how you want it. You can get chunks by participating in battles that you already have the max amount of ability slots filled through Salmon Run rewards. The shell out machine gives them as prizes sometimes, or you can scrub your gear with merch or spike to remove all the secondary abilities off a piece of gear and get them back as chunks. There are a few other ways to get them too. You can spend chunks with merch or spike by asking them to use chunks, and in order to use them, you'll have to use at least 10 of the same ability chunks for one secondary ability slot, or 45 of the same type of chunk to replace the main ability slot. You can stack abilities, but it costs more chunks to apply more of the same ability to a piece of gear, and the effect of each ability is lessened for each of those you apply, so it still increases the power of said ability, but each one increases by a smaller amount. There are these things called ability curves. Check the description for a link to view them. They're kinda complicated though, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comments. A balanced piece of gear will have many different abilities, but I kinda just like to use Pures a lot of the time. A Pure is basically a gear piece that has all the same ability on all 4 of its slots. It's funny and it can be pretty useful, especially when it's something like special charge up and you just get your special super fast. And for when you're playing for fun. But I will say, using a more balanced gear loadout is way better for playing more competitively and for growing when learning the game. But experiment away. I'll quickly go over AP, aka ability points. They're essential for internal measurement used to measure the amount of ability power used by the player. Main or primary abilities give you 10 AP, and secondary abilities each give you 3 AP, so in total, you'll have 57 AP to spend on your gear. However, this number can be increased while conditions are met while using abilities such as Last Ditch Effort or Comeback. Also, Ability Doubler can only provide 9 AP rather than the usual 10 for a primary slot, so you end up missing out on 1 ability point when you use a Splatfest with this equipped, which is why I said it wasn't so great earlier. Well, that'll be it for this video. Now you know where to shop, hang out, and train. Thank you so much for watching. The next video, as a reminder, is going to be about how to play and use each main, sub, and special weapon, as well as how to play each of the 4 anarchy modes. If this video helped you or taught you something you didn't know, please like and subscribe, and ring the notification bell to stay up to date and learn more about the series. Until next time!